For that, let's turn to the Universities South Africa CEO, Professor Ahmed Bawa, who joins us now via Skype. And Prof, thank you so much for joining me. And the Minister is quite upbeat, says the system is well geared. She anticipates there'll be a smooth beginning to the year. Do you share that optimism?
Yes, I think I think we are also confident that NSFAS is in a much better position this year than in previous years, and I think largely because the minister took very firm action at the end of last year, and there was a very strong collaboration between the universities and NSFAS. So on that front, at least, we're fairly confident that there'll be a much better start to the year. Of course, on the other side, universities too are all prepared. I'm sorry about this. I'm sorry about that. I think the big challenge for us is really that we hope that the information about funding reaches students and universities at a suitably quickly, so that students can make their choices earlier on. Yeah.
Yes, this whole situation around NSFAS, and we will turn to your own readiness as universities in just a moment, but how important is it that NSFAS is actually ready, given some of the changes that have happened recently? For instance, the introduction of fee-free access to higher education for certain categories of students.
Yeah. No, we must just remind ourselves that the so-called fee-free model is really operationalized by NSFAS through the new bursary system, if you like. So it's absolutely fundamental that the universities get this right. That NSFAS gets this right this year, and we are confident actually that the system is in a much better position this year than it was last year.
All right, before we lose the line, let me ask you then from your side. I mean, the number of pupils who got what's known as bachelor passes that allows them to study at universities stands at over 170,000. Are you ready from your side for the intake?
Yeah. Look, the total intake into the university system this year will be around about 200,000 into first year at least. The total number of students in our system is over 1 million. The first year intake will be about 200,000. We must remind ourselves that that there will also be students from the diploma category, the diploma pass category, that will gain access to certain programs, especially at the universities of technology. So all in all, I think there's preparedness at the universities for this first time entry students, and most of them, of course, will have planned. All of them, in fact, will have planned kind of orientation programs and so on for the students. Just before I finish, I think that we must also I must also emphasize the minister's point, that the universities are not the only option that is open to students, in their studies, in their futures. In fact, there's also the TVT sector, which is very important, and we do encourage students who are not accepted into universities to make sure that they access those places as well.
Why do you think, Prof. Bawa, and I know I'm just trying to sort of prick your mind now on this one, why do you think that that option is not usually the first preferred option? More people, even in terms of, NSFAS applications, 400,000 that had been received by the end of last year, many of them signaling that they'd actually like to study at a university as opposed to studying at a TVET college. Why do you think that is?
Look, I think there are 3 or 4 really major issues that we have to take into account. The one is just the fact that as universities and the TVT sector, we have to work quite hard now over the next year or 2 years to understand how to articulate these two sectors better. But more importantly, to try to understand how that TVT sector can be linked much more closely with industry, in fact, in some respects, the way in which universities are, if you take engineering and so on. So that young people understand that, that a qualification in the TVET sector might actually be a better option, if you like, in terms of employment and so on. So I think there's a lot of work to be done between the universities and the TVET sector, but also to try and understand how we can get the TVET sector to be much more closely linked to the economy and to employers and so on. And that's a project I think that we all have to engage in. It's not just a project for the TVET sector itself.
I'm debating, Prof, whether I can risk it, given how difficult our line connection is at this point, but here we go. We started last year with you as a sector worried about the impact on your operations, on your revenue streams of the announcement that had been made by then President Jacob Zuma at the end of 2017. And you are quite concerned about that. You've said that you believe NSFAS is in a better position this year than it's been in a while. Yeah. Given that and all the other extra things that you now have to deal with, provision of accommodation and the administering in terms of, making sure that the monies that are meant to reach the students, the subsidies reach them, are you confident that the fee-free model for those that qualify will be implementable much better than last year?
Yeah, look, first of all, we have the experience from last year, so that's important. And just to remind ourselves, that last year we had something like 6 weeks, from the announcement on the 16th of December to the implementation of the system. This year we have a much better understanding of the complexities of it. The second issue, of course, which the Minister has emphasized, is the fact that at least the medium-term sustainability of this new model is guaranteed. That it's in the medium-term budgets. So that's not an issue anymore. We are quite confident of that there is money for it. And thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, NSFAS has really gone through a change in its systems to try and ensure that that its systems are much more geared, not just for the new system, but for kind of the linkages between the universities and NSFAS. So all in all, we are certainly more confident this year than we've been previously.
All right, Prof, thank you so much. That line, not the greatest line, but we've got the gist of what you are saying. We really appreciate your time. That is Professor Ahmed Bawa, who is the CEO of Universities South Africa. This is